a solar farm, but all of our obligation too is always to understand, is it allowable to do that, right? Is there any state regulation or state law that says it can't be, we can't put that restriction in there? Having Mr. Markwell there, and we just spent some time trying to make sure that if we added that, it wouldn't, and that by itself was in violation, that wouldn't throw out the whole ordinance. And we came to the conclusion that not any one factor would make the whole ordinance invalid. And so we did, in fact, end up passing that as a group.
According to Matthews, he did consult with a potential developer on how the ordinance might impact his project, and the feedback was overall positive.
They did the setbacks. They also, very similar to wind, have designated what zoning.
I know we have at least one, Dee Dee, but is that
Blue Iris? It's in the.
So there was one gentleman there from one of the companies that is looking to bring a solar farm to DeWitt County, and I asked him during the meeting if he had any experience with any kind of setbacks like that on the battery storage. He hadn't presently. I kind of followed up with him on the next day just to make sure that I understood his answer to the question. He didn't really indicate that was a problem or any that would keep someone from doing it. It's just another thing they need to consider when proposing a solar.
With a lot of renewable energy initiatives, the county has to closely watch what the state of Illinois is doing, and County Administrator Dee Dee Rentmeister points out there has been some movement on solar policy at the state level.
They did the setbacks. They also, very similar to wind, have designated what zoning districts and uses where they can be allowed. So they stepped in very similar to what they've done on the wind side.
Rentmeister also points out there is imminent interest in a wind farm coming to DeWitt County.
I know we have at least one, Dee Dee, but is that
Blue Iris? It's in up on the county line by Farmer City. Their application will actually come to the county board on December 21st for approval. It's a 40-acre proposal. There is no battery. They're not proposing any battery storage on site. When it has gone through the process of the RPC, and this last week the ZBA held the public hearing, so both boards have recommended approval for this project.
In other renewable energy fronts, a major CO2 pipeline project that was slated to go through DeWitt County has been pulled, and its future remains uncertain. November was normal for temperatures and below normal for precipitation. John Bumgardner at the National Weather Service in Lincoln indicates what made November stand out was how drastic it was between the high temperature for the month and the low temperature for the month.
Temperature-wise, we were pretty close to normal. We had some fairly big swings. Our warmest day was 77 on the 8th. Our coolest day, or coolest morning, was 12 degrees on the 28th. Our records are 83 and -3, so we didn't break any records, but we still had quite the swing. Precipitation-wise, again, below normal, we had just over an inch. And climatological normal is just under 3, so we're running about 1 3/4 inch deficit, which, again, we fortunately remedied somewhat. Still probably have a little way to go, but we are doing a lot better. Fortunately, don't have agriculture to worry about for the rain this time of year. Snow-wise, we had about 2 inches of snow. Our average is around 1 inch, so a little bit above normal there with that snow towards the end of the month, just before Thanksgiving.
The lack of rain in November is setting up the need for some significant rainfall in December through February, and Bumgardner says it isn't setting up well when we have an El Nino winter on the way.
We normally get about 1 inch of rain in December, and let's say it's around 5 inches of snow on average. As a winter on the whole, it's about 22 inches is our average in central Illinois. So December gets about 1/4 or perhaps a little more of that, 5-6 inches. This year, I don't know. If we could get something at the end of the month, but I'd say the next 10 days or so, I'm not seeing a strong signal for snow. And since we haven't had any so far this month, very well possible we could go the whole month without getting anything. Then the question is, will we make up for it in January and February? I don't have a clear answer for that, but yeah, it is trending to be a less snowy month than normal. Precipitation on the whole is looking like it might end up being a little below normal. We've got a slight lean towards below normal in the probability data.
According to Bumgarner, what could compound the issue is the fact as the winter rolls along, the cold hardens the ground, which creates less saturation and more runoff when we do get precipitation.
Well, that's a great point. In the winter, our precipitation will often run off a bit more. It's not well absorbed into the ground. In fact, it's not really absorbed at all if the ground is frozen. We haven't really had a frost depth yet so far this year, but when we do get a little bit colder, that's certainly a possibility. Again, with things trending above normal in the temperature department, I'm not sure how big of an impact that will be, but certainly if the ground does freeze, any precipitation we get is not likely to help the dry conditions a whole lot. On the bright side, the ground also will not lose moisture if it freezes, so it sort of preserves things, but that's an issue. If we get heavy precipitation, we have higher flood concerns in the winter when the ground is frozen.
Bumgarner also points out it takes about 10 inches of snow to equal 1 inch of rain moisture. News time is 19 minutes after 7 o'clock on this Monday. Coverage of news brought to you by Baum Chevrolet Buick in Clinton, your Silverado headquarters, and we stream to Facebook and YouTube, brought to you by Peterson Insurance, your Pekin Insurance agent in Clinton. A break here, back with plenty more coming up on the WHOW Morning Show.
At Baum Chevrolet Buick, above and beyond is standard practice. This is Scott Baum from Baum Chevrolet Buick in Clinton and Farmer City. When you shop for a vehicle, there's nothing standard about it. You simply don't do it every day. That's why our sales staff will ask questions, listen, and help you find the transportation solution that checks all the right boxes. Come see our selection and start your search for a new Chevrolet or Buick today. BaumChevyBuick.com. Right from the start.
Once again, 19 minutes after 7 o'clock on this Monday, I'm Seth Lawrence with you folks today for this expanded local newscast. Last year, Illinois senior citizens who met income qualifications were able to get their license plate stickers for only $15. This year, qualifying seniors will only have to pay $10 for the new stickers. Cassandra Schmall is a senior advocate and administrator for the Henry County Senior Center.
It's good for 2 years, which, it goes on a cycle for us. So we do want to remind people, if you think you're eligible, if you're a couple, make $44,533 or less, definitely get you a discount, $15. Well, no, they lowered it to $10 a sticker. And if you're single, $33,562 or less.
To get your senior license plate discount, contact the Illinois Secretary of State's website, ilsos.gov. If you or someone you know has recently just lost a loved one, understand this can be a hard time of year for them. The grieving process varies for person to person and can last longer for some, but a pastoral care professional and bereavement coordinator for OSF Hospice says grief is a part of the healing process. Among the long list of coping suggestions, one may help the most is know your physical and mental limits in holiday social situations and set expectations accordingly. Rita Manning says we should not be afraid to bring up the memory of a lost loved one.
If we don't talk about it, it's like an elephant in the room. And oftentimes those that I've worked with, and myself personally, I like to hear those stories. What were your memories in your relationship with him or her? Because, again, it helps me to know you had that relationship and that you're missing them too.
She says you should keep an eye on the grieving person for signs of bigger issues. Someone may start eating or sleeping too much or too little. Also watch for changes in their appearance, like how they dress. If the grief reaches a crisis, like a specific plans for self-harm, seek help right away. Several sources within USDA's rural development mission area are providing resources in making our nation's supply chains more resilient. Rod Bain has this report.
What are the tasks associated with the White House Council on Supply Chain Resilience?
I'm charging this group to ensure that our supply chains remain secure, diversified, resilient.
President Joe Biden at the recent inaugural meeting of the Council, which has among its members Agriculture Secretary Tom Vilsack. USDA investments in supply chain resiliency in the past 3 years include almost $200 million in 185 projects nationwide. Much of that comes within the Rural Development Mission Area, with 5 specific programs fostering that investment. Rural Business Cooperative Service Administrator Karama Neal offers examples of how these investments look on the ground level. Rural business development grants provide resources for training and technical assistance.
An example is a $30,000 grant to the Welcome Home organization in Michigan. Their grant is being used to conduct a feasibility study and an engineering study for a business incubator, food hub, and commercial kitchen in Jackson, Michigan. Projects that include a general store, grocery, kitchen, and small business incubator, and will feature products from local producers.
Value-added producer grants through rural development and the Agricultural Marketing Service increase revenue opportunities for producers in making their goods value added.
An example includes a $250,000 grant to Mill Creek Farms in Georgia. Their investment is going to be used for working capital to process pecan nut crops into packaged pecan products in the form of shelled, roasted, candied, and white chocolate pecans.
Affordable financing options for entrepreneurial projects as provided by commercial lenders is part of rural development business and industry loan guarantees. An example of such a project:
Georgia Solar in Vermont is using a loan guarantee to finance their solar farm. Their project is expected to produce enough energy to power the equivalent of 88 homes for 1 year.
The Rural Economic Development Loan and Grant Program, Red Leg, provides zero-interest loans to local utilities who lend monies to rural businesses. One program no longer available for application, the Food Supply Chain Guaranteed Loan Program. Among the recipients,
the Lone Star Bakery in Texas is a third-generation family-owned business that's using their $40 million food supply chain guaranteed loan to modernize their facilities so that they can serve customers now and in the future.
I'm Rod Bain reporting for the U.S. Department of Agriculture in Washington, D.C.
One expert says USDA's new 2023 farm income forecast raises some concerns for 2024. Gary Crawford has more.
The other day, when the Agriculture Department came out with its new 2023 farm income forecast showing a projected 21% decline in net cash income for farmers this year, USDA's chief economist Seth Meyer seemed to want to point out the positives in the report, pointing out that the $158 billion net cash number is down from last year's record high, but
it's still above the long-term average.
And he said if you take together the net incomes from 2021, 22, and 23...
This is the 3 highest consecutive years in the last 50 years.
That's a nice way to look at it, but Seth told me that he's a little bit worried about what's going to happen if 2024 brings farmers another cut in income.
I'm an economist, and I'm a worrier. I always worry about these things.
And he gets paid to look into the future and, yes, to worry about it. So here is the long, unedited list of worries from Seth Meyer.
When we look at the kind of the dynamics going forward, I guess what I'm going to keep an eye out for, how are we looking at commodity prices going forward? We look at across the board on commodity prices with a few exceptions like cattle. We see prices coming down, right? And even cattle, we've seen some moves recently, at least in the short run, of softening cattle prices after some record highs. So I do, again, continue to worry about margins that we'll achieve on the farm. So what does net farm income look like in the next estimate we get in February? We'll get the kind of the first look out another year. What does it look like in terms of input prices? Again, not growing as fast as was anticipated in the last report, but still growing. We talk about softening commodity prices. Where are we at in terms of margins? And again, even what we attained for farm income this in 23, what we're estimating for farm income is down a lot from 2022, but it's still really good and would be hard to maintain long run. Right? So we might even expect a reversion to something smaller in terms of net farm income. You know, I might even just from a momentum standpoint anticipate some further declines. But what does that look like in 2024?
Well, we will get USDA's first income forecast for 2024 on February 7th. Mark your new 2024 calendars. Gary Crawford reporting for the U.S. Department of Agriculture.
Let's take a look at today's obituaries. 93-year-old Harold W. Dunham of Maroa passed away December 8th at his home in Maroa. Graveside services and military honors for 93-year-old Harold W. Dunham are Wednesday, December 20th at Maroa Cemetery with Reverend Gordon Spiegel officiating. The family has entrusted Calvert Funeral Home of Maroa with arrangements. Memorials can be directed to the Wounded Warrior Project. 79-year-old Donald L. Don Bowman of Bloomington, formerly of Farmer City, passed away Thursday, December 7th at the Bloomington Rehabilitation and Healthcare Center. Graveside services for 79-year-old Don L. Bowman will be today at 10 a.m. at Greenleaf Cemetery with Pastor Dave Ashby officiating. There will be no visitation. Calvert Belangi Bruce Funeral Home of Farmer City is assisting the family with arrangements. News time is 28 minutes after 7 o'clock here on this Monday morning. Coverage of news is brought to you by Baum Chevrolet Buick in Clinton, your Silverado headquarters. Get the latest in local news anytime from your computer or mobile device at DeWittDailyNews.com.
The days are getting shorter, and as we prepare to spend more time inside,